Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the May 17th Strategic Planning Committee meeting. I'm going to start us off by doing introductions, and I am Carla Silvestre. I'm the Vice President of the Board and Chair of Strategic Planning. Ms. Oluni?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hannah Oluni, the student member of the Board of Education.
Dr. Joftis?
Hi, everybody. Scott Joftis, member of the Board of Education.
And Ms. Sharon, do you introduce yourself and your team, please?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephanie Sharon, Chief of Strategic Initiatives. I have here with me colleagues from a variety of offices today. From our Special Education Office, we have Phil Lynch. From our Office of Shared Accountability, we have Dr. Keisha Addison. We have from SFSE, our Student Family Support Office, we have Lindsay Cow and Carrie Lantos. Carrie, you're with the same office, right? I just want to make sure I got your office right. No? Which office are you? You can just come up.
Office of Shared Accountability.
You're OSA too. I'm so sorry. So Office of Shared Accountability. And then we also have our OSIP colleagues today. We have Jeannie Franklin, and we also have Nikki Hazel. So those are all of, oh, and I'm sorry, and Jen Webster from our School Support and Improvement Office as well.
Thank you. Ms. Harris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I'm late.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So today we are continuing our review of outcome data from our strategic plan. The first pillar, academic excellence, we have reviewed reading by grade 3. We have reviewed 8th grade math, and now we are reviewing college and career readiness. And so without further ado, I think this is a very important discussion. We have to, this is the goal here, college, career, and community readiness. And so looking forward to the presentation to learn where we are with this. Ms. Sharon?
Great, thank you so much, Ms. Silvestri. And I do want to introduce one more member who I didn't see on our screen, and that is Dr. Genevieve Floyd with our career and post-secondary partnerships. So Dr. Floyd is here with us as well today. So I'm going to get started. If we could pull the slide deck up, please. And as Ms. Silvestri indicated, today we are continuing our conversation in our first pillar of academic excellence. And our focus today is to really dig in deeper on college and career readiness. And as you can see in the snapshot, there are 2 goals that we have here to increase the percentage of students graduating high school and increasing Maryland college and career readiness rates that we are going to be addressing today. So we're going to be starting off today giving some history and background on the College and Career Readiness Completion Act of 2013, how that has informed some of the work that we've been doing, and how this is going to be changing and morphing under the new blueprint that is rolling out. And then we're going to be digging in a lot deeper on the online tool that Naviance is, and that we have used as a district for quite some time in helping planning and utilizing lessons through Naviance in college and career. And then we're going to start talking more deeply about graduation rates. As you all know, our graduation rates did increase last year. So in our most recent data, so we are going to have a conversation around the areas of improvement and success that we've identified. And then we're going to really dig in deep around the graduation validation process. We're going to talk about what that looks like for our schools overall, and then we're going to dig in a little bit deeper around our students with disabilities. And then we're going to be highlighting one of our schools that has done quite an exceptional job around graduation validation and what it is that has set them apart in this process, and what our goals are in trying to expand some of the great work that they have started at that school across our district. And then we will conclude today with an update on our strategic plan. We are going to be very high level talking about some of the tweaks and modifications that have been made to the strategies that are listed in the strategic plan. A more comprehensive memo is going to follow this meeting that will be sent to the full board that specifically outlines what strategies have been updated or changed for the benefit of the board's knowledge, and we're going to be updating the website as well. And lastly, just to conclude, to talk about the strategic planning update, we are going to be next year as part of our process. This is our last strategic planning committee meeting of the year. And next year, we're really going to be honing in on the 4 key areas that the board has identified as priorities. And we're going to be engaging in the process, not just in our strategic planning committee meetings, but also in the offices around really digging into what those 4 priority areas are on a quarterly basis and measuring our progress and efficacy in those areas so that we can then produce a mid-year and end-of-year report for the board around that work as well as the community. Yes, Ms. Silvestre.
Sharon, I'll stop you here because I failed to ask my colleagues for agreement in the agenda. And since you have the agenda slide here, do I have agreement from my colleagues on the proposed agenda for today? Great. And were there any changes or updates that you wanted to see in the meeting summary from our last meeting? Speak up because I can't see you.
Carla, this is Scott. I don't have any feedback from the last meeting, but I would like to discuss the agenda for next year that Ms. Sharon was just alluding to before we dive too far into that.
Can we do that at the end or?
Oh yeah, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, we can move on.
Great. Thank you so much. So that is a high-level overview of what we're talking about today for our final meeting of the year. And I am now going to turn it over to Genevieve Floyd, Supervisor of Career and Post-Secondary Partnerships, to begin our discussion around college and career readiness.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. I do want to apologize because my camera is not working, but hopefully you can hear me clearly. Can you just nod if you can hear me clearly? Excellent.
We hear you. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so we definitely wanted to start with the College and Career Readiness and College Completion Act of 2013 because it's this legislation that has informed our work thus far. And as you shared, Ms. Silvestre, in the beginning, the primary role of school districts is to educate our students so that they are college and career ready. And this legislation was passed requiring districts to assess, support, and report the college and career readiness of all students prior to graduation. The legislation was huge, but the CCR component at a very high level really requires that all districts assess the readiness of students at the end of grade 11. And the assessments, the measures, the standards that are used to determine CCR are agreed upon in a memorandum of understanding with the Maryland Association of Community Colleges and the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland. And Dr. Addison is going to review these measures in the next slide. Now, the school counselors and the staff members, they work closely with the students to determine the best assessment to take in grade 11. And if students are college and career ready, they are encouraged to enhance their learning through AP courses, IB courses, college courses, et cetera. And if they are not college career ready, they are directed to a transitional course or an additional instructional opportunity. And these transitional courses could be completed during the summer or during the school year after grade 11 throughout their 12th grade year. And these courses could be the next course in the sequence. It could be a preparation course. The instructional opportunities could be tutoring. It could be the Khan Academy. Any strategy that could strengthen their English and math skills are used. And the strategies used to support the students' strengthening of skills can vary. The counselors work with the students to identify supports and strategies of best fit. So towards the end of grade 12, there is then a reassessment of college and career readiness. And this could be done using one of the assessments that was used in grade 11 or other assessments. And that could include a CTE program of completion, certification, or a locally agreed upon measure agreed upon with the community college. Students can also use that measure to reassess whether they are college ready or not. And so Dr. Addison will now review the currently agreed upon CCR measures and the student data. Dr. Addison.
Thank you, Dr. Floyd. Next slide, please. And so as Dr. Floyd previewed, here are the measures that are used to determine meeting the College and Career Readiness College Completion Act of 2013 in terms of the agreement with the community colleges. Here you will see the measures that are included, and they are deemed college and career ready in either English language arts or literacy, and they are measures for mathematics. For each of these, a student only needs to meet one of these measures to be deemed meeting it. And students who have not yet met, as Dr. Floyd elevated, if they haven't met it by the end of 11th grade, they will continue to work toward this goal in their senior year. Next slide, please. And so on this slide, what you see are the results for our current seniors meeting CCR, CCA, as of the data we've received through February 2022. So it's what happened at the end of their 11th grade year and adding any additional information that may have come in from, for example, some summer data. Results are reported for all students, gender, race, ethnicity, and services. And on this slide, there are 4 columns, the first indicating the total number of students, next, the percent of students in the respective group meeting college and career readiness and literacy. To the right of that column is the percent of students meeting college and career readiness and math. And the last column is the percent of students meeting college and career readiness in both math and literacy. And so across the first row, you will see 81.4% of all students met in literacy, 81.9% met in math, and 79.6% met in both literacy and math. And what you will notice by looking at percentages for each racial ethnic group is higher percentages of Asian and white students meeting CCR in both literacy and math, and lower percentages for our Black or African American and Hispanic student groups. And so 72.9% of Black or African American students met CCR in both literacy and math. 61.3% of our Hispanic Latino students met CCR in both literacy and math. And you will also notice lower percentages meeting in both areas for students receiving services. Next slide, please. Presented on this slide are the results for our students in our originally identified student focus groups. You will notice percentages for meeting CCR in both literacy and math range from a low of 55.9% for Hispanic Latino students receiving farms services, free and reduced price meal system services, to a high of 93.8% for Asian, white, and all other student groups not receiving farms services. I will now turn it back over to Dr. Floyd to share college and career readiness as it relates to the blueprint for Maryland's future.
Thank you, Dr. Addison. The blueprint for Maryland's future legislation is akin to the 2.0 version of CCR CCA of 2013. As you may be aware, there are 5 policy areas in blueprint, and all are in place to ensure that students graduate college and career ready. CCR policy area 3 is literally and figuratively at the center of this legislation. And as we go to the next slide, I'm going to share a high-level overview of the CCR policy area 3. So this is an overview of the policy, and there are 5 policy areas as stated in the blueprint, and also 5 components, if you will, in the CCR policy area. Then when I think of these components, I think about the questions we ask ourselves when evaluating student achievement. Are students learning? Are they learning enough? How do we know? Why not? If not, why not? And what are we going to do about it? The first component seeks to establish standards and find out if our students are learning. Current CCR standards will be reviewed and researched and will determine if the current standards are still appropriate. Instead of assessing students at the end of grade 11, the blueprint will then require us to assess students using the new standards at the end of grade 10. The next component requires districts to put structures in place for post-CCR pathways. And when I say post-CCR pathways, that refers to pathways students would follow if they are deemed college and career ready. The pathways will be designed to strengthen their skills, to enhance their learning, and they would include AP, IB, dual enrollment, CTE opportunities as well. So all of this is currently within MCPS, these post-CCR pathways. We have robust opportunities. However, there are two main differences in what we currently do and what will be required. One difference relates to the CTE option. There are opportunities that include credit as well as non-credit courses offered by MC. So currently we work with the credit side of the house. So with Blueprint, we will be able to work with the non-credit side of the house, the workforce development programs under the CTE umbrella. So that will be new. And the other difference is that all of the post-CCR pathways must be available to students at no cost. So this will be extremely beneficial for our students and impactful for our budget. The other component for students who do not assess CCR, LEAs must put in place CCR support pathways to help students become CCR. So students will have 2 years of support in order to strengthen their English and math skills instead of the 1. The next component relates specifically to a change around CTE and the oversight. So in addition to the credit and non-credit course options, the Accountability and Implementation Board, the group that oversees the blueprint, will establish a CTE committee, and this committee will be in place and they will oversee all of CTE programming. The final component is the expectation that all pre-K through 12 curriculum standards and assessments will be aligned towards the new goals. Hence, the work to ensure that students graduate CCR will begin in pre-K, beginning with the end in mind, if you will. So the next slide speaks about the timeline. Oh, this is not the most recent one, but I can walk you through this one as well. So there is an aggressive push for implementing Blueprint to Maryland. There's a sense of urgency around this. And so there was an aggressive timeline. MSDE asked for an alternative timeline, and then AIB suggested a compromise. So where we are now is that the CCR standards are in place. There are interim standards in place, if you will. However, research will begin throughout next year into the spring, looking at these standards to determine if they are the correct standards that we should use. And so this research should take place between the spring and summer of next year. Because there's going to be ongoing research, we will continue to use or speak to these standards as interim. They may be revised in the spring, in the summer, in the fall, or the spring, because the research will continue throughout and until the school year of 2023-2024. So by 2023-2024, there is an expectation that these support pathways as well as the post-CCR pathways will be in place and students will begin to access those pathways. So there's a lot happening, a lot going on simultaneously, but it is currently the expectation of the AIB board that by 2024-25 school year, everything will be in place and will be determined based on the research, the CCR standards that are going to be provided based on that research, as well as the support pathways and the post CCR pathways. Next slide, please. Okay. At this time, that was a high-level overview, but Dr. Addison and I will take any questions that you may have.
Questions, Ms. Looney?
Yes. So when we talk about measuring college and career readiness, I noticed that there are a lot of quantitative measures that we're using. So taking a look at that chart, we see AP exams, IB exams. But as someone who has taken a lot of the exams that are listed as measures of college and career readiness, I'm not exactly convinced that they are the best measures of A, what students are capable of, and B, the actual mathematic or the actual English-based skills that you need in college, but particularly the workforce and beyond. So I was wondering if, in addition to all of this quantitative data that we require from every graduate, and that is required by law for us to keep track of, if there's any qualitative measures, if we survey outgoing seniors, for example, on their assessment of how prepared they feel for whatever their next few years is going to look like, if that's a practice that we have.
So I will start, I'll defer to Dr. Floyd to kind of speak to the partnership and the collaboration around those measures that are included. And I hear your question, Ms. O'Looney, around qualitative measures. In the past, the state used to have kind of an exit survey that they did of students. I don't know if Lindsay, you know if it's still happening in Naviance, but that was pre-pandemic. We were in the conversations to get that survey transition to the Naviance system to ask questions around kind of post-high school plans and expectations. Outside of that, in terms of truly aligning to the College and Career Readiness College Completion Act of 2013, there are no qualitative aspects of it because, again, it aligns with that specific act.
You've said it well, Dr. Addison, and as far as I'm aware, there is currently no discussions among those two groups to add that kind of component as well.
Okay.
But the survey is still happening, right? Because I'm getting emails about seniors needing to complete it. Hannah, you must be getting them.
Yeah, I took it recently. It just asks what my where I'm headed next. Where to send my final transcript, but nothing about, I think what I would be more interested in is an assessment from our seniors, particularly those who have been in our school system for as long as 13 years, on what their experience has been, looking back, where we've lacked. And if they actually feel ready for their next step, whether that's college, whether that's straight into career, if our students themselves would say that, yes, as an MCPS graduate, the education that I've been provided with is valuable for what I want to do next. Just something to consider, and something that I also think would be valuable would be speaking with our recent graduates and asking them similar questions. That qualitative data is, I think, really, really important and could be valuable for our system. Thank you.
Ms. Harris?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I just really want to build on Ms. O'Looney's point here, because I read through this, and I'm a parent of a recent graduate. I talk to and work with students, both current and alums, all the time. And I guess I'm interested in how we're validating these measures. And, if the state is thinking very concretely and pragmatically about, so they've come up with this list of criterion that they say will show whether or not a student is college and career ready by the end of 10th grade. And if they're not, if they don't meet these standards, then they're building on other supports and things like that. But how are we validating these measures to know that they are actually markers and reliable markers of true college, career, and community readiness? And I agree with Hannah. I mean, having an external measure, qualitative in nature, that goes past, our students as they're exiting our system, but 1 year, 2 year, 3 years out after their graduation, did we make them college, career, and community ready once they have actually been out in college, in career, and in the community? And to me, even if the state isn't working on that, that doesn't mean this isn't a question that we can't start asking ourselves as a system, because that's the nature of the work. That's why we do what we do. And, I've talked to a lot of students lately who would express a lot of interest and willingness to actually participate, in 6 months, 12 months out or longer, just an open prompt in an MCPS forum asking that straightforward question. Did we make you college, career, and community ready? If yes, how? If not, why not? And what can we do better?
Yes, I can answer the first or address the first part of your question, Ms. Harris, and then I'll defer to Dr. Addison to talk about the opportunity to assess readiness once they've left us. But I think that's the purpose of the state research. The purpose is to look at these standards and to see if they are truly valid, because we've been using these standards for the last several years, ever since 2013, and it's been a long time to have these standards in place. And so what they are currently doing, they're working with the Maryland Assessment Research Center, and there should be a study completed this summer, but then they're going to have another RFP for a longer study to be done. They anticipate looking at these standards, studying what are truly CCR standards that should be used and measured across the state, and then implementing them in 2024-25. So they're taking their time to really dive a little deeper, because the question that you are asking, many have asked. And so I do appreciate the fact that there is going to be some long-term research done to answer this question for our district and for all districts.
And just to add on to what Dr. Floyd shared and connecting to the question around what are we doing as a district and our opportunity as a district to implement some of the things that you're recommending, I do see an opportunity for us as we think about better connecting some of the information around what's coming as it relates to students being deemed college and career readiness, and connecting it to our other data points that we have and that we're working towards having. So for example, we receive that post-secondary enrollment information, right? So are we seeing alignment in terms of those students who were deemed college and career ready showing up as being enrolled? And then really creating a pipeline where we do reach back to students to understand, for those who may not have entered into a post-secondary institution, did they enter the career field that they may have received industry recognized credentials? And so we are talking through and creating those opportunities for us to better answer some of those questions.
Dr. Joftis?
Thanks. Yeah, I would be hesitant to go too far down that path. I understand the intent in collecting that information, but it really does place a heavy burden on the district. And I think from what I've seen of that type of work in other places, it's of not as much value as we would like. I think it could be done really well here, I'm sure, but I would let some of the state work play out before I emphasize that. But my question has to do, and feel free to tell me that you're going to be covering this, but on the other part of the CCR work, the sort of the CTE, the career and technical education, I'm really happy to hear that that's being developed and pushed by the blueprint. Is the idea that schools will need, all high schools will need to be able to provide a pretty comprehensive approach to career and technical education with certification? Because that seems like it could be a pretty heavy burden on schools, but also provide a lot of really great opportunity for students.
Thank you for the question. Based on the meetings I've attended, I think the ideal is to work in partnership with the local community colleges. And so providing the opportunity for students to go to the college campus, again, at no cost, to take advantage of some of these opportunities that they offer that we may not offer. And we are fortunate to have Montgomery College because they have a large catalog of opportunities that could potentially fit under the CTA umbrella. And we're already, and again, we are well positioned in this district to partner with them and to do some things with the non-credit side based on what we've learned from the credit side. So that's my understanding based on the meetings that I've attended.
And the idea would be that any student in any high school in Montgomery County would be able to access a program of their, within a range, a program of their choosing that would end in some type of certification?
Again, that is my thinking. We would certainly have to work with the colleges to determine if there are any kind of requirements in advance. I don't believe that they are with the workforce development opportunity. They truly are the communities college, but all of those details would definitely be worked out, and access is critical. So if and that's why I'm thinking about the no cost option, because we have to make this available. And so it may involve not only tuition costs, but it could possibly involve transportation. So a lot of that has to be worked out in the details, and hopefully we'll have some clearer guidance in the coming months.
Thank you.
Yes, very happy to hear about the non-credit options, because there's a whole universe of students that would be interested in that. And to Dr. Joftis' question, yes, for every student that meets college and career readiness requirements by 10th grade, if you don't meet them, then no, you don't have those options. You have to continue with the support pathways. And that's my question. Could you repeat what those support pathways are, or are they changing as well? And given that our English language learners are the lowest graduation rate in the school system, how does shifting the readiness to 10th grade affect them?
Yes, the AIB will be working collaboratively with MSDE, LEAs, community colleges now through the 2022-2023 school year to develop not only the post-CCR pathways, but the support pathways. So we don't have those concrete in front of us. But again, based on the meeting I attended, the thinking is it's better to have the opportunity to enhance the readiness or increase the readiness of students over the course of 2 years instead of 1 year. However, to your point, we do have students who are accessing CTE courses in grade 9, accessing AP courses in grade 9. So we have students who are accessing some of these pathways that are deemed post-CCR pathways before grade 9, and AIB and MSDE has shared that's fine, that can continue. So it's not cut in stone that students cannot access support or post-CCR pathways until after grade 10, but the expectation is that they should be on these 2 developed pathways by the end of grade 10 if they are ready and have not already done so. So supports, we know often within our schools what students are capable of and what their needs are without these CCR readiness standards. And so schools will undoubtedly continue to measure where students are and support students as they are moving through their high school trajectory as they have done in the past. So I expect that those supports will still be in place, Ms. Silvestri, but again, we don't have those concrete pathways in place just yet.
Okay, thank you. Quick question, Ms. Maloney, and then we can move on.
Yes, I just wanted to briefly respond to Dr. Joftis' comment and also just return to my point on the need for qualitative data. I just think, taking a look at that long list of measures of English and math, so much more valuable than my, let's say, a 5 on BC calculus, indicating my ability to find the slope of a tangent line next to a curve. So much more valuable than that on my math knowledge and ability to apply it into my future career would be a student's personal assessment of, okay, reflecting on the education I've received for the past 13 years and the career field I intend to go into next year or in 4 years or 8 years. This is how comfortable I feel 1 to 5 that my math education has prepared me for college and career. And we already collect that kind of qualitative data on school climate surveys, and we're currently collecting that kind of data on anti-racism. And if we feel that kind of qualitative data from our students and our staff in our buildings can help us improve our schools in those areas, I can't even imagine the transformative effect it would have on the actual education our students receive day to day. So that's just my thought, but we can move on.
Thank you, Ms. Aloni. Ms. Sharon?
Can we bring the slide deck back up, please? Okay, and I'm now going to turn it over to Lindsay Cow, who's the coordinator in school counseling services, to continue our presentation on Naviance.
Thank you. Our school counselors are trained to provide support to students in 3 domains: academic, social emotional development, and college and career development. To support the college and career development area, Naviance is a tool used for our secondary counselors to deliver lessons that help students learn about post-secondary planning. We developed a scope and sequence for our school counselors and college and career information coordinators to follow for grades 6 through 12. Naviance currently costs us $500,000 annually, and we are currently in a 3-year contract and are going into our 2nd year of that contract. We are also currently exploring other online college and career programs to learn more about their offerings and functionality. Next slide, please. Our Naviance scope and sequence was developed to provide learning for students in 4 key areas of college and career readiness: self-discovery, career exploration, academic planning, and college and career preparation. There are several objectives covered each year in grades 6 through 12. By the end of 6th grade, students will have learned about goal setting, what Naviance is and how to use the tool, and career exploration. They're going to complete the career cluster finder and identify career clusters based on the student's interests. By the end of 7th grade, students will learn about career exploration. They will complete the Strengths Explorer that is designed to identify student talents and strengths and continue goal setting. By the end of 8th grade, students will complete the Career Key Assessment that helps students identify personality types. They will also complete the Graduation Course Planner for their 9th grade year. By the end of 9th and 10th grade, students will have updated their course planner, explored post-secondary options, and completed the Career Interest Profiler that provides additional career and college exploration. During the 11th grade year, students complete the Supermatch College Search and learn about best fit colleges. They also develop a post-secondary goal, again, update their course planner, and continue with college exploration and planning. And lastly, during the senior year, students update long-term goals, apply to colleges and for scholarships, and finalize their post-secondary plans. Next slide, please. This slide provides an example of how we use data from Naviance to inform our work. We created a goal as part of our Student and Family Services and Engagement Office strategic plan. The goal is to increase the number of African American and Hispanic students applying to at least one college as part of the Maryland College Application Campaign, from 59% African American to 80% over the next school year, for school year 23, and to 90% by 2023, from 39% to 60%. By using Naviance, we were able to monitor this data over time. Our numbers have improved and are moving in an upward direction. In May of 2021, we were at 64% of African American students and 44% of Hispanic students completing at least one college application. As indicated in the chart, this year, we have 74% of African American students and 52% of Hispanic students completing at least one college application. We know we still have a lot of work to do in this area. We attribute some of the increases to our college fairs, especially the most recent HBCU fair that provides on-the-spot admissions for students in the month of February. We also know that our college and career information coordinators are working closely with students and families to provide support with the college admissions process. And lastly, we have several college access programs, such as ACEs and college tracks, in many of our schools that are helping our students and families with applying to colleges and scholarships. Next slide, please. This slide demonstrates some of the barriers and challenges we face with college and career education for all students. Communication has been our biggest barrier. While we have an MCPS website dedicated to the information on Naviance, schools are also communicating the various tasks to families. One of our focus areas will be to improve overall communication on the functions of Naviance, beginning this summer with various summer workshop opportunities for students and their families. In addition, we are working with our vendor as well as a team of school counselors to work to revise some of the lessons and differentiate instruction as needed. We are also looking ahead to have various staff members as part of the delivery and communication process. As I mentioned previously, our college fairs and college access partners continue to be an integral part of this work. And for data monitoring, we are looking to further the disaggregation of the data to look at the parent usage and which populations we need to connect with. We've added Naviance parent workshops in English and Spanish through our Parent Academy twice annually and plan to add more for next year. We recognize the need to inform our students and families around all that Naviance has to offer, and we will continue to work with our various stakeholders to do so. I will now open it up for discussion.
Thank you. Questions from my colleagues? Ms. Harris.
Yep. A question, as we have been using, as the presentation has showed, Naviance as a tool for students and educators for a while now. How are we doing on ensuring a level of consistency and fidelity, and how middle schools are using Naviance, and how we are providing that space during the academic year for the work, students to engage with Naviance in ways that actually are meaningful. And when I say meaningful, in ways that, a year or two later, they actually remember.
So there's a few things that we're doing with that. So first, in the summer, we meet with our middle school resource counselors, and they look at the scope and sequence. And as a team, they work together to talk about the best time of year to offer some of these lessons, with the expectation that they then go back to their summer leadership meeting and talk to their school teams about, here are the lessons that I need to do. What class is the best time to plug in to do these lessons? Which teacher can I partner with? So the timing is really on a school to school basis, but thinking about that, in July, looking at the following school year. We also get monthly reports from Naviance, not just on the application data, but also usage data that we then give to the schools to look at and have discussion around, and they can easily see what percentage of their 6th grade students, for example, are logging on, or their 7th grade families. And so the schools do have access to that data on a monthly basis. And we're going to continue to push that out even more.
And as you're collecting that data, do you see, is the level of uptake, you said you're monitoring usage, are you seeing it relatively consistent across all of our 40 middle schools, or are you seeing schools where there's lots of engagement with students and by students and families, and others that aren't, it's not as robust? And then how are we sort of, if that's something we're seeing with the reporting that we're getting from Naviance, what are we doing to make sure that students are really getting the most they can from this resource?
Yeah, so it changes based on the time of the year. So first of all, I think that's one big thing we look at. And if there is a pocket of a school per se that maybe isn't using it on a regular basis, we partner them up with another school that is, so they can use their best practices. As far as maybe it is an access issue, right? Getting into the classrooms and things like that. So I would say the last that we looked at the data, everybody was almost on the same page as far as completing the course planner, for example, which our 8th graders do, because they like to do that during academic advising season. So when they're picking courses for high school, so they are all on the same page there, with a few schools that maybe have done it a little bit later because maybe they're not part of the DCC or NEC process. But we spend time during our monthly resource counselor meeting also giving them a chance to talk about that. You know, they want to be able to get in and do this lesson, or maybe this one wasn't as effective. How can they better do that? But right now we're definitely seeing an uptick, especially now that we've been in in-person school as well.
Yeah, my question is related to that. Do you have percentages for us in terms of utilization at the different levels? So at one point I had heard that pre-pandemic, we had 80% of all middle school students had done what they needed to do on Naviance. Do you have data like that to share with us, or do you need time to recover from pandemic to provide us meaningful data?
No, we can definitely circle back with you to provide you with that data.
Thank you. And I just wanted to make a point about college applications. I think, I don't know if you're incorporating how to pay for college as a part of those discussions, because a lot of people are not going to apply if they don't think they can afford it. Ms. Looney?
Yes, absolutely.
That's a fantastic question, Ms. Silvestri. Thank you for asking. So a frequent criticism of public education, and MCPS is no exemption, is that we push this idea that college is the only path forward. It's the path that everybody must follow from a very, very early age. And that can push a lot of students who maybe don't need a college education or don't need to spend that much money to get an additional diploma into college and then into possibly debt when it wasn't necessary. And so I was just wondering, we have a few slides dedicated to early exposure to college in middle school, but we don't have any for other non-college options. So what are we doing in that area? I think one thing I would call out as a very, very positive, constructive step that our school system has taken, that my brother, who's 3 years younger than me, got that I didn't get, is the field trip to Thomas Edison High School, and having our 8th grade students tour the facilities, understand what technical education is, understand the benefits it provides down the road. That's not something I got, but it's something my brother got. So I see that we're making progress, and I was just wondering what else we're doing in that area and how we're measuring that.
Yes, so one of the things that we're doing is continuing those opportunities for our students, and actually also for our middle school counselors to expose them to that too, so they can begin those conversations. So you mentioned Edison. So for example, our leadership retreat with the resource counselors at the middle school level is going to be at Edison this summer. So they can have that experience and be able to then talk to their 8th grade students about it later, as well as our high school counselors. Naviance does have several components that do talk specifically about college, but they also talk a lot about career and career readiness and different goal settings there. And that is for 6th through 11th graders. So while we do talk about in the scope and sequence some things that are geared more towards college, a lot of the tools that they are also completing expose them to different opportunities. And the course planner really is one of them, because once they find out maybe where their niche is or what they're interested in exploring, the course planner actually works backwards, where they're selecting maybe one of the CTE program completers and then filling in their courses from there. So it's exposing them to those completers that maybe they weren't aware of when they go in and do the planner, and then begin to think about it from that area as well.
And how are we measuring that? I think it's really easy to measure, the exposure students are getting to the college process by seeing how many applications they submit, and we have the technology to do that, but it's much harder to measure when there's so many diverse options and pathways that are non-college.
No, thank you for that. And I think that's something that Dr. Floyd and I are going to continue to work on together when we present with the resource counselors about different options for our students. That's something that we'll definitely keep into consideration.
And Genevieve Floyd mentioned that as a part of the blueprint, we are going to start offering more CTE non-credit options. And those are non-college, non-traditional college options. Yes, they're still offered at a community college, but you don't need a degree to get your certification in HVAC, in solar panel installation, there's even some, of course, computer science certificate programs, construction, all the continuation of all of our CTE programs are also available as workforce development certifications. And I think that's what you're referring to, Ms. Aluni, the non-degree pathways into workforce development training. Everybody needs some skills after graduation. And yes, the workforce development certifications are definitely something that we need to promote more and measure as a success, because if that's a student's goal, then and they attain it, well, then definitely that should be counted as they went to where their goal, to meet their goals. Okay, so let's move on with the presentation.
Okay, if you can pull the slide deck up. Now we're going to be transitioning in this conversation to start talking about graduation rates, and I will be turning it over to Dr. Addison to start the conversation.
Yeah, so in this slide, it's just a brief reminder of our class of 2021 graduation rates. You received this information in a board memo, and what you see here, the top bar in green is our all students percent of graduates for the class of 21. And then you'll see racial ethnic groups as well as students receiving services. So this is just some framing in terms of what you will hear next as it relates to the work that we're doing related to graduation rates. And so now I will turn it over to Mr. Lynch to speak to the graduation and supports for our students with disabilities.
Next slide. Thank you. I'm going to share a little bit of data regarding our students with disabilities, but first let me say that our students with disabilities not only have access to all of the different tools like Naviance that were described earlier, but they also have, in the year that they turned 14, which is often the 8th grade year, the addition of transition goals and activities that are mandated to be placed on their IEP, where they are individually looking at what those students' goals towards the post high school transition will look like, and they start working on those goals at an early age. And for the vast majority of our students, they are focused around meeting graduation requirements and college preparation, but for students with significant cognitive needs and for students with different types of disabilities, they're as they get older and they go through their high school careers, they focus more intensely on those types of life skills that they will need to be independent beyond high school. I apologize for this blank in the upper right-hand corner. This is the state target for the state of Maryland is 73.85 for that 21 school year. And as you can see, MCPS met for that 2021 school year, the state target. You can also see as you look at the data that MCPS has met the target up until that 18-19 school year, where the target as it increases gradually started to separate from where we were as a system. And for that first year in 18-19, we did not meet the graduation target for the state of Maryland, and we didn't make it in that 19-20 school year as well. part of the analysis of this has to do with the fact that this data is based on the 4-year cohort. And one of the things that's happened in MCPS over this time period is that we've really seen an increase in our students who need time beyond that 4-year cohort. And we've seen specifically a rise in our increase in students who meet the criteria for being on that autism spectrum. And so what we have done over time is we have developed some wonderful programs and services for students that are designed to support them with those graduation goals that may go beyond the 4-year cohort. And so, for example, we have a service that we refer to as Autism Resource Services. And when a student who's been receiving those services would enter high school, one of the first conversations we might have would be, whether that student is going to graduate with their 4-year cohort, their 5-year cohort, or what they might need in order to meet those graduation requirements. And it's really helpful when you have those conversations early on in that student's career, because then we were able to plot it out over the course of time and still meet those the graduation requirements. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about are just some of the strategies that we've put in place to try to improve our graduation rates for students with disabilities, and they're in the lower right-hand corner of the slide there. So one thing that we've done is to increase the number of what I call check-ins with students and put them earlier on in their year that they are expected to graduate. The TST there, I apologize for the acronym, stands for the Transition Support Teacher. So all of our high schools have a transition support teacher that specifically focuses on the needs of students with disabilities, helps to conduct their transition interview. That becomes a part of their education plan or program, and then also helps to monitor them as they work on these goals. And so there's a review that is in addition to the typical review that happens for seniors to make sure that they're on that path and to put some things in place if they need additional supports. We also have instituted a high school camp, and this is an opportunity for students with disabilities in the summer to meet with representatives from their high school. They would talk to coaches, sponsors for clubs, counselors, and administrators to talk about what they need to do to prepare for high school. And it's really the primary goal there is to help them connect with school in a variety of different ways beyond just the academics. Because we all know what the data looks like when students are able to connect with school in multiple ways and how they stay engaged. And so that's the goal of one of our high school camps. We also have a graduation profile tool that is used to help students look at how they're making progress along the way. And then we've done a number of different parent outreach and resource sessions for middle school and secondary transition parent nights, secondary transition newsletters, and we have something that we call TIPS, which is transition information for parents with students with disabilities, in addition to college nights. The graduation profile tool I mentioned a minute ago is geared towards promoting those higher CTE completion rates. So that's specifically focused on improving our percentage of students with disabilities that are accessing those CTE courses, but also the completion process. We've done better in having students get involved in those CTE courses, but we really need to focus on the completion rates, and that graduation transition tool is designed to help with that. This time, I want to turn it over to Kari to talk about the origin of our graduation validation team.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you this afternoon about the work of the graduation validation team. The graduation validation team was established as a result of the 2018-2019 Maryland State Department of Education Graduation Rate Validation Data and Compliance Monitoring Self-Assessment. The self-assessment process was one MSDE required of all Maryland public school systems to evaluate processes, regulations, and practices around graduation validation based on 6 topic areas that include governance and leadership, pathways to graduation, attendance and dropouts, grading integrity and grade modifications, promotion and graduation eligibility certification, records access and control. A cross-office team of central office staff was formed to review the 115 questions and contributed content and resources supporting MCPS's practices around validating graduates. We did very well on the audit, receiving a 98% on our assessment. As a result of the cross-office collaboration, it was determined that a central office team would be established to partner with the school staff to enhance their already established processes of verifying student graduation requirements. Ms. Cow is going to talk shortly about the makeup of the cross-office validation team, so I'm not going to go into that right now. The graduation team, which consists of school and central office staff, meets quarterly to monitor progress toward graduation. The primary focus of the graduation validation team is on students in the current year's original year of graduation, or OIG, and years prior, so students who were retained from a previous year, while also focusing on students in grades 9 to 11 to ensure that those students remain on track to graduate with their assigned year of graduation. I'm now going to turn it over to Ms. Cow, who's going to talk about some of the tools and strategies that have contributed to the success of the graduation validation team thus far.
All right, so as Carrie mentioned, the graduation validation team is a central office-based cross-office collaboration. The team created system-wide expectations for monitoring the data and providing real-time intervention to students. The central office team consists of representation from school support and improvement, student family support and engagement, college and career readiness and district-wide programs, and the Office of Shared Accountability. Each person on the team not only brings a level of expertise from their various offices they represent, but also their roles. The team has established a true partnership with the school teams, providing support throughout the entire process. As a graduation validation team, we provide schools with their data updated on a weekly basis, help problem solve specific credit or testing questions, and meet with schools to help create individualized plans as needed. A common monitoring tool called the Graduation Validation Database was created by the team to track student progress towards graduation. Over the years, the database has been constantly adjusted based on the needs of seeing what the students needed, what worked, and what feedback from schools and what they would really like to see. For example, a section was added where schools can see in real time students that are signed up for summer school courses, and another section was added to create for schools to be able to see notes. Formalized quarterly meetings between central office and school-based graduation validation teams are held. During this time, we review updates to the database, the school's individual progress towards graduation, any information from MSDE, and any other items that are needed. The school team consists of the administrative team, all school counselors, the registrar, the ESOL and special education resource teachers, the college and career information coordinator, and the SSL coordinator. School counselors and other team members use the graduation validation database to indicate if the students are progressing toward meeting graduation requirements. The image that you see on this slide gives you a picture of information shared within the database. The graduation ready score is a tool used to show how ready or close to a student is to graduation. The higher the score, the more that they need actually to work towards graduation. The score is calculated while considering credits needed, testing needs, or SSL needs. School teams are also asked to share their data with us to see what subgroups within their school community may need additional supports and interventions. Alongside of their area director, schools are also able to review more in-depth data to uncover potential trends and ways to mitigate them. In addition to this, we also support schools in their process with preventing and reconciling transcript discrepancies. As a team, we work with schools to understand the past errors as well as ongoing changing graduation requirements. During the height of the pandemic, waivers were permitted by the state, which did provide some relief. However, schools were and still are challenged with keeping students engaged amidst the competing interests. The creation of student well-being teams has set schools up to take an organized approach to monitoring student engagement and various needs. This allows school staff to follow up on students in real time. For example, staff becomes aware of a student that is working, they reach out to the employers to support students' ability to engage. The influence of technology during the pandemic allowed the graduation validation team a combination of in-person and virtual meetings with the school teams, and has helped us be able to bring all the key support to schools in a more succinct way. I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Webster to give you a more in-depth look of what this looks like at the school level.
Good afternoon. You've heard about the practices of our central office graduation validation team that Ms. Cal just shared. And the graduation validation process has valued the standardization of the approach to monitoring the progress of students toward graduation across all of our high schools. The MCPS graduation rate has increased over the past 4 years, and this progress has been closely monitored and supported by the central office graduation validation team. So we'd like to highlight a high school that has strong internal structures to support students' progress toward graduation and who exemplifies the expectations set forth by our central office graduation validation team. And that is Wheaton High School. Wheaton High School's graduation rate improved significantly after a challenging experience for the community during the pandemic of 2020. I'd like to dig into some of the practices drawn from the grad validation process and the school's internal structures that have allowed Wheaton to demonstrate strong outcomes for students during very challenging times. There are several factors that support Wheaton's success in supporting students' progress toward graduation. First, the school takes a very personalized student approach to their work. The team at Wheaton says, we talk with students, not just about them. Staff have individual interactions with students who are struggling before they fail. And if students do fail a course needed for graduation, there is an immediate response, quickly moving students into credit recovery to try to recoup the credit in real time instead of waiting until their senior year. Wheaton has also created grade level teams to know, monitor, and support the students in each grade level. Each grade level team consists of the grade level administrator, the counselor, and a teacher from that grade level. The students are cohorted by original year of graduation, which we call OYG, and they stay with their administrator and counselor throughout their 4 years of high school. The teacher on the grade level team remains attached to the grade level, serving as a strong liaison between the teachers of the courses in that grade level, the grade level team, and the student. The grade level teams meet weekly to monitor progress and respond to the needs of their students in their cohort. The teams hold regular grade level town hall meetings to share relevant information that students need to know as they own their progress toward graduation, and for the team to be able to respond to their social emotional needs. The grade level teams meet individually with students to follow up on issues as they monitor the student grade and attendance data. And I'll say, as a former middle school principal and high school principal, what you hear described is a lot of our high schools taking some of those best practices from being able to connect and work in a team approach just to make a big school feel small. When I look at the work that's done at Wheaton, it very much reminds me of that work that we do at the middle school level to really wrap ourselves around kids and make sure we know each student and their story. So this leads to an important practice the Wheaton team uses. The grade level teams are proactive, intervening with students at early signs of struggle. They monitor student data real time and respond quickly with intervention and support. The weekly meetings generate an ongoing communication cycle with students as they surface with concerns in grades or attendance. There is constant accountability for the grade level team's review of data as they report out to the operations team weekly what they've been doing over the course of the last week, what data was reviewed, what their follow-up steps are. And this allows each grade level team to learn from one another and to norm their work. The Wheaton team makes strong use of their student well-being team structure. They hold weekly meetings to review student data across all 4 grades, including student absentee rates, student social emotional needs, and grade data. The Wheaton team notes that the concept of team is key to their success. The grade level teams own their students and their data, and then they're able to work with the broader team of support for students in the student well-being team setting. The well-being team allows time for the students for the staff to problem solve as a team, helping to determine when the Wellness Center support or other partnership support is needed for students. The assignment of the counselor and the admin by original year of graduation is important to the Wheaton team because they note that it allows the staff to know the students' stories and what works best to support the students. Because they follow their students, even if they don't progress to the next grade level, technically, they still remain in their grade level team, their original year of graduation, the staff who know them well. So when students flounder and fall off cohort, they're able to be continued to be monitored by that team. The Wheaton team also collaborates closely with the members of our central office grad val team. They reach out to our team outside of the formal meeting structure for assistance with students, problem-solving barriers, and staying on top of any testing, SSL, and course requirements. The Wheaton team works to ensure that they're on top of all the latest information that will help their students, and they leverage the expertise of the central office team. Overall, a key strength of the Wheaton team is their commitment to monitoring data and monitoring their students. There is high accountability and high ownership of the students. They have established strong structures and they know what data they need to review. They review it with fidelity and they take constant action. No sooner does a meeting end, and I've witnessed this myself, that there are students streaming down to the office, being stopped in the hall by their administrator or being called at home by a member of the staff. A challenge the Wheaton team noted was when students aren't able to attend school. And this year more than ever, we've encountered that across all of our high schools. There are competing demands on our students' time, and students may be working, maybe helping with family, or suffering from social emotional strains. In these cases, the Wheaton team stays committed to being flexible with students, meeting them where they are, trying to stay in contact, and welcoming the students warmly when they're able to attend. And I believe at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie.
We can advance to the next slide, and I think that we are at the point of discussion. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Silvestre.
Thank you. Questions from my colleagues? Ms. Harris.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I think this goes back to Mr. Lynch's part of the presentation. And first of all, I think we are the envy of many school systems and the services that we're able to provide many of our special education students. And I think the autism resources, true exemplar of that. And the one question I have is you're talking about how we're looking at some students who are in LFI, so they're learning for independence, maybe not necessarily with the goal of the high school diploma, maybe yes, maybe no, but coming out of it with real life skills that will, help them manage, a post MCPS life. And then some heading into some of our CTE programming. How are we, and I'm speaking at this somewhat from my own experience as a CTE teacher at Edison, when I was teaching there, this wasn't happening. But how are we engaging our CTE instructors who are the subject matter experts when it comes to their area of career, their career field? How are we engaging that expertise of those instructors in helping to guide students into programs that will, that for which they're suited, that will work for them, to identify what kind of supports might be required for students to achieve the end goal of those CTE programs, which for most is a certification or a license. As I said, when I was teaching at Edison, we weren't really part of that conversation, which I don't think served students well. And how are we doing that now?
That's a great question, and I'll start by saying thank you for and recognizing the programs that we have. One data point, I'll just take this opportunity to share that I should have shared earlier. I mentioned the 5-year cohort. The 4-year cohort, and that's our measure. We are now, I should have said earlier, being judged on the 5-year cohort, and that has been a change at the federal level and at the state level, and MCPS sees almost a 10% bump. So we in 2020 had a 79.9% graduation rate over our 69 graduation rate when you went to the 5-year cohort. So I wanted to just sneak that in, but I think you're so right that there has been a deficit in our communication between the homeschool, sending the student, the case manager, when we look at those different programs, as we started to increase the participation in those programs, it was a little bit of the tail wagging the dog, where we started to see the feedback coming back to the schools saying, hey, you know, if these students are going to be more included in these programs, then we're going to need better collaboration. So right now, I think it's still an area of improvement from a system standpoint, but we have improved, and it's just anecdotally because of the need, the communication between, you know, what are the students' supplementary aids and services and ways in which they're going to access those supports. And we've provided an increase in paraeducator support that would travel, for example, from the homeschool to a site like Edison, so that somebody who's familiar with the student and has worked with them in a different setting can travel in that other setting and support them in the ways that they know works and implement a behavior plan, whatever needs to be put in place. So there's been this, so my answer, you know, while I think we can make a lot of improvements, there's been a necessary improvement because of the increase in student participation, and it had to happen, and we had to involve the homeschools and add some additional resources. But it's certainly something that I will take a look at, and from a standpoint, I think you're looking for more of a what is our, you know, what's the system approach to that to try to increase that.
Because, you know, if we're saying career ready at whatever level, the subject matter experts that know what it takes to be successful in a career are your professionals teaching those CTE programs in schools. So you don't have to look very far to get people who really can provide substantive and deep knowledge about how we can go about supporting and helping students to succeed. So, I mean, take advantage of that resource. Off my soapbox. The other question I think goes from Dr. Webster, talking about what they're doing at Wheaton, and you described what's clearly a very hands-on and intensive approach to getting students to that end game of graduation. And you talked about what, you know, students who have significant absences and how the staff approaches those. How are you addressing, I mean, how does that kind of an intensive intervention plan and program address when staff are the ones who come and go? Because you know, as we know, with COVID, we had a lot of staff going out on, you know, quarantine and isolation, but also staff come and go. So we can't assume that the counselor that's working with a cohort of students that enter in 9th grade is going to stick around and still be there as they move through. So how does that really intensive model that you've described, that best practice model, account for the coming and going of our staff that make it work?
Yeah, thank you for that question. There's a couple layers to your question. Very, very apropos right now as schools are struggling around staffing. So what I will say is so unique and special that I think all of our high schools strive to have, that Wheaton has, is it's really a culture. So you can take the people in and out, but once you're there, it's how we work, right? So so you can change the team leader from year to year, but folks around you know this is how we work. And it's so clear that this is what we do when students are absent. We are accountable as adults for follow-up. There's just a culture of intensity and of this is our work and an urgency that I'll say, you know, as a former principal, that's what you strive to have, that urgency around the data and the kids and where they are in their progress and talking with them about it. So I would say the culture is important. This year, and the other layer, so just the typical changing of roles, not an issue at Wheaton because people can come and go, but there's such strong established culture there that the culture still works. But this year has been challenging with the staff just not being able to fill positions, staff being sick for periods of time, right? There's a lot of things that are impacting us, and that has put strain on other staff because other staff have had to step up. And I think that's why, you know, when you all talk with teachers and principals, this has been a very unique year, and I'm very proud of the work that our staff have done. They've stepped in, they've supported one another, they've kept a good sense of humor, but it is hard. And this year has required, when we're down people, more people have to step in and assist. So it is a challenge, and in the best situation, it's hard work, and it really has been exacerbated this year by staffing needs. I'll say Wheaton specifically, they've had shortages in counseling that have impacted their work. It's caused a burden on the counselors who are there. They've just done tremendous work because of their commitment to their kids, and they just don't see another way, right? I think they're very much looking forward to a break this summer, as I think many of us are. But yeah, I appreciate your question because it acknowledges that it's not so easy as what I just described, right?
And just one last question. How has the presence of the Wellness Center at Wheaton augmented or made more possible the work of these intensive of teams working with students?
The Wellness Center is a key partner for the work that they do at Wheaton. And I'll say working with 2 high schools that have access to a Wellness Center, it is such a seamless resource to be sitting at a table talking about the need for support and to be able to immediately take that student to have access to support when students are in crisis or when you're just planning and you're trying to connect, help families navigate the resources that are out there. It's an invaluable resource, especially now. So Wheaton's connection with their Wellness Center is seamless. And it's almost like their staff, except they're trained professionals to deal with things that, school counselors and teachers aren't trained to do. So it is a huge support to their work.
Thank you.
Dr. Joftis.
Thank you. Ms. Silvestri, this is more of sort of a process comment and question. As you know, the board has been working on how we can make our meetings as efficient and impactful as possible. So I just wanted to comment a little bit. The presentation today I thought was excellent. The data presentation is really transparent and clear. I love the connection to an exemplary school and what they're doing in order to address the issues that we're talking about. I would say one sort of grow opportunity that and I'm using this only as a way for others, staff who come to, as we work with you in our committee and full board meetings, if we could really limit the discussion of, and other board members may disagree with me on this, but really staying focused on the bigger picture. I felt like the description of the validation team was helpful to a point. And then it gets to a point where it's just sort of hard to follow when we're not as intimately involved as you all are. And again, I'm saying that not at all to be critical. I think that work is excellent. I really do. It's more as, and Ms. Sharon, this may be also for you because we've been trying to communicate with Dr. McKnight and others about sort of how we can find that sweet spot of delivering information and having a conversation about the really critical aspects without getting sucked down and taking energy and time away from those pieces with some of the details that are interesting, but maybe not always as helpful for the board. So again, I just want to thank you all for a really good presentation, and I'm hopeful, Ms. Sharon, that as we go forward, we can sort of emulate some of those, and this goes, I guess, for Dr. Addison as well, if we can really emulate some of those practices. And I know you all have been doing that, and really, it will really help us, I think, make our meetings as efficient and impactful as possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joftis. I hear what you're saying, and I know that we all had questions about how we were able to achieve improvements in our graduation rate in the last year, and I think guessing into the rationale is I think the staff wanted to give us as much information as possible so that we can feel confident about how we achieved those increases in graduation, the validation process being one of them. And as you all read, we had a memo that explained this in greater detail. the Maryland high school assessments requirements were waived for that last class of graduated class. The SSL requirement was waived. MCPS requires more credits to graduate than COMAR, and that was waived. And then the validation process, which is excellent. All of that led to our higher graduation rates in the last graduating class. And my question, I guess, where I'm going with this is the waivers that were implemented last year because of the pandemic. Has there been a conversation at the state level in terms of what things we truly do need to keep in place and what things the pandemic taught us that we can get away with waiving or not requiring in the future? Any discussion around that? I know we all want to learn from our pandemic experience. Any learnings as a result of what was waived and what students were able to do without those requirements? And if not, that's fine too.
Yeah, I will say off the top of my head, I can't think about anything that the state has shared in terms of carrying over some of these waivers, but we can definitely just circle back. As you see, kind of a lot of things are going back to normal from the state's perspective as it relates to assessments, and they're even proposing additional types of assessments as it relates to COMAR. So we'll definitely look more into that and can circle back to you on that, Ms. Silvestri.
Thank you. And then with the Wheaton example, always looking to take things to scale. Is there anything that other schools would need in order to do what Wheaton is doing, Ms. Webster?
So I'll say there are a lot of our high schools that have variations of what Wheaton is doing. So Wheaton is one of, we could have pulled, a lot of high schools that have really strong structures. And I will say it's hard. We're going to brag a little bit as a grad validation team. We've really appreciated the opportunity to partner with our high school principals, and I'll say their receptiveness to when we did the initial audit and we said, look, we need to standardize some of the structures and processes across all high schools because we are accountable to basically confirming that our internal structures in every single high school we are giving diplomas that we have certified. Students have completed everything, and that requires some oversight, and it's oversight which actually benefits the principal to strengthen their processes. And each of the directors and school support and improvement have owned the process. So while I serve as the lead, each one of the principal supervisors is active in their own validation meetings to ensure the follow through. So schools are on a spectrum of implementation of kind of the Wheaton as an exemplar, but they're all well on their way. We've seen some great growth with some of our high schools this year that have really put a lot of great structures in place, similar to what we have at Wheaton. So I would say it's fully possible for every high school to do this. It's really just the way they work. And I don't know that we do provide funding to schools through the graduation validation process to support some of this work that we appreciate the funding that comes through to support that. So right now, I think we have the pieces in place. We're in our third year and moving into year 4, and I expect that it'll just continue to improve as we go.
Thank you for that. This is my final question. If there's aren't any other questions, I know we're going to a different type of presentation next, right, Ms. Sharon? It's more about the strategic planning changes to the wording of the document. And some of you have highlighted this already, the next piece of work. So as you dream about this work at night, what do you think is the next body of work? What would you like to see us doing in the next 3 to 5 years?
Okay, I'll be there. We're all looking to see who's going to do it. So, when I'm in the same room with my grad val team. So you've probably seen us like giving each other answers. So what we did, one of the things that we strive to do better and as a team and for schools is to start the planning. We do plan for students as soon as they enter, gosh, it starts in middle school, right? When they're coming into high school, thinking about their trajectory for college, career, life ready, right? Whatever jobs look like even 4 years from now. We do that, but we'd like to have the validation process be as strong as it is for seniors for ninth graders. And that's something that we continue to build out. This year, we added a layer to the process that has students elevating their data for schools elevating their data for underclassmen. So I think that's our next body of work as a district, is to really tighten that monitoring. Schools do that monitoring at the school level, but now we need to make sure the consistency, like what we've started the work with seniors happens. We need that consistency grades 9 to 12, and then we can even look at middle school, right? And elementary school.
Thank you. I'd love to learn. I haven't gone into Naviance in a long time. So I really like to learn its capacity and how much we can customize it. Ideally, I would like to have every student graduate with a post-secondary plan. And I don't know, I mean, I've heard what you said today, but I maybe follow up with you to explore its capacity to do that, and what it would take, and how early we need to start building that out. Post-secondary includes non-college options, Ms. Alum. All right, Ms. Sharon, if you could take us home here with our last section of our presentation.
That's good. We can pull the slide deck back up. So for our final portion of our presentation, we're going to talk about some updates on the strategic plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Addison to walk us through.
All right, so I was already planning to talk about being efficient in the review of this portion of the slide, so no worries. And so what we attempted to do for this first slide is just to provide you with an overview of the summary of recommended adjustments to the strategies connected to the various strategic priority areas in the strategic plan. And so as we shared in our previous conversation, we went back to the respective offices and requested that they look at their identified strategies and make any adjustments. And some of the reasons for the adjustments might have been to increase clarity of the wording, or they might want to better align what they've identified to practices that have been implemented to date. And so this slide is intended to just show you just a summary overview of how many strategies were either updated, deleted, or added. You'll notice we did not delete any and we did not add any. The number under each of the strategic priority area headings indicates the number of strategies related to that. And so what you'll see is for academic excellence, there were 10 strategies that were updated, 2 were updated under wellbeing and family support, and 6 were updated under professional and operational excellence. One adjustment that came out of this work was making an adjustment to the number of objectives, particularly under academic excellence, where we are recommending a reduction of 1 objective, and I'll talk through that as we get to that slide. Next slide, please. So this is the slide that shows our proposed objective change. The first column shows the current objectives as they are currently indicated in the strategic plan. And then the middle details what we're recommending, which is we're recommending going from increase the percentage of students graduating high school and increase Maryland college and career readiness rates to just the larger, broader category of increasing Maryland college and career readiness rates. And to the right, you will see our rationale. Essentially, the strategies that were identified were the same. And so if we're going to be doing the same, approaching the work the same for these 2 strategies, it made sense for us to put them under 1 objective. And additionally, as we thought about the metrics of success that are currently under increasing the percent of students graduating high school, they fit well under increasing Maryland college and career readiness rates. Essentially, our thinking is, part of the process to be college and career ready is to definitely graduate from high school. So I'm going to pause here just in case there's a discussion around this piece and this recommendation. And if not, I'll keep going.
I think we can keep going.
All right, thank you. And so again, I will only pause at the slides where we're making recommendations. I will not pause at the slides that we are not making recommendations. Next slide, please. And so on this slide, what you see are the recommended revisions to the strategies under the objective of improved student achievement in literacy and mathematics. What you will notice is really it's just providing better clarity around what is indicated. And so this is essentially the essential portion. So for example, the last strategy on the page on the left, it says ensure English learners. And as we are transitioning to more asset-based language, it says ensure emergent multilingual learners. Next slide, please. So again, this is the objective recommended for deletion. What I indicated before was that the current strategies and the proposed revised strategies are the same as the increased Maryland College and Career Readiness rates objective. Next slide, please. So as you notice here, there are no recommended revisions for these current strategies. Next slide. Here is the increased Maryland College and Career Readiness rates. Again, the revisions are to provide increased clarity around what we're expecting to do to support the priority area and a specific objective. Next slide, please. Here you will notice 2 of the 3 strategies under this objective are not recommended for revision, but the one in the middle, again, just recommended enhanced clarity of the wording of what is presented. Next slide, please. No recommended revisions for these current strategies that are under the objective of increased post-secondary education enrollment. Next slide. There are also no recommended revisions for this slide, for this objective. Next slide. We transition to the Wellbeing and Family Engagement priority area. This is the first objective. Again, you'll notice no recommended revisions for the strategies identified. Next slide, please. Of the 3 strategies identified for the objective of implement school level practices to support effective behavioral health management systems, you will notice an adjustment to the language for the second strategy identified. Next slide, please. Again, still under Wellbeing and Family Engagement priority area. One recommended, this looks like the same thing. So let me just verify that. We'll need to double check that. But one recommended adjustment for the language. Next slide, please. And now we transition to the professional and operational excellence. The first objective under here, you will notice some recommended wording adjustments for the current strategies, and particularly the last one where a heavier amount of detail is provided to incorporate some of the priorities of the district in terms of our work and creating a professional learning and development strategy for staff. Next slide, please. For the second strategy identified, recommending some clarity and language around what is expected as a strategy to increase professional learning opportunities for teachers and staff in the area of trauma-informed practices. Next slide, please. For the objective of improving the strategic recruitment strategy in order to increase high-quality workforce diversity, you will notice additional detail provided in terms of the strategy, which is being recommended for the revision for the last 2 strategies on this slide. Next slide, please. For the objective of increasing connectivity, the second strategy, again, improving our language in terms of what is identified as the strategy to support this objective. Next slide. There are no recommended revisions. Next slide. There are no recommended revisions. The next slide, there are also no recommended revisions. One more slide where there are no recommended revisions. And then we'll hand it back over to you, Ms. Silvestri, for discussion.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Okay. Ms. Sharon, did you have anything else? Or if not, I know Dr. Doftis had some recommendations for agenda setting for the next school year.
Yep, that's all we have. And I'm looking forward to hear what Dr. Doftis has to share.
Thank you. So I know the leadership team has been engaged in some work around being really clear about the levels of autonomy that schools, the area superintendents and central office have, and where responsibilities lay for different parts of the school improvement process. I feel like that's a really, really critical part of the strategic planning committee. I think I'm really pleased that that work is going on. I think it's essential. I think it's actually the number one thing a system needs to do in order to put us a school system, especially a large school system, on the path to meeting the goals of the strategic plan. So I think what I'd like to recommend or suggest for upcoming agenda early in the school year would be kind of an update on that, and then periodic check-ins about how the system is, how the central office, area superintendent or associate superintendent structures are shifting to become aligned with that emerging approach to school supports and management. Ms. Wolf has told me I'm not allowed to use the word theory of action, or so. But that's what I'm talking about. So if we could get, like, you know, if my suggestion would be, in addition to updates on the progress in meeting the strategic plan goals and objectives, would be sort of an update on that work, and then regular check-ins as to how the system is aligning itself to that emerging change and approach.
And Ms. Sharon, you confirmed that that work is happening, so we will have something to report back on?
Yeah, so just to clarify, so Dr. Doftis, so you're interested on basically the school improvement planning process that is being worked on and developed right now, and how central office is supporting that work in schools. Did I understand you correctly?
So more the work that you're doing with Meredith Honig.
Okay.
To the extent that I understand that, my understanding is, again, that it's just trying to gain clarity about what's non-negotiable at the school level, where do principals and school leadership teams have some autonomy about how to implement particular aspects of curriculum and programming, and then what role do the associate superintendents and directors play in fostering that that sort of tension between fidelity to consistency across the district and some autonomy at the school and area levels.
Got it.
Dr. Doftis, is it a self-assessment, or are we working towards an ideal?
So there's no ideal. I mean, research would indicate there's no right point at which there's some schools have autonomy over some things and not over other things. But what the research is really, really clear on is that high-performing systems are clear as to what those things are, and that it's sort of the starting point as to how you can create systemic improvement going forward. And that's really hard to do when that clarity is not present.
So understanding everyone's decision-making authority and
Yes.
what they're responsible for.
At each of the key levels, school, area, and central office. Does that make sense, Ms. Silvestri? Ish.
It does make sense.
Yeah, so just to add on to what Dr. Joftis is saying, so he mentioned Meredith Honig, who is a lead researcher out of University of Washington that is responsible for creating and researching how you transform central offices, and she calls it central office transformation, in order to promote equitable teaching and learning in schools. So what we're working on with her in central office is that she takes a look at a variety of different areas. Her number one area, I think, that has the most research that she has written a book about that we have been looking at and studying, is principal supervision, and how you really work as a principal supervisor, as a coach to principals, to help them transform and lead the learning in their school. And so there's that component. There's also a component around professional development that she has done copious amounts of research for, how you create teacher teams, and how central office supports that work through OHRD. It's very complex work, as Dr. Joftis said, but we have been engaging with her throughout this spring and really thinking about how we can transform our practices to best support the needs of the schools from that culture responsive lens. And MCPS is actually in her central office transformation network now, with some other districts that we're working with other districts on what their practices are in these areas, so we can really transform how we're better supporting schools. And I think that's what Dr. Joftis is asking us, is what is the progress of that work, and how are we taking a look at our systems, because that's what it really boils down to. Is, the reality is that, public schools and central offices have been doing things a certain way for very, very long time, and not necessarily have yielded very different results in their work. So her research, she's one of only about 3 people that really do this research, kind of puts it all on its head to say, you need to kind of rethink everything that you're doing from a very different lens, in order to really impact teaching and learning in an authentic way.
Yeah, and I'm really, really pleased that that we're engaged, that the leadership team is engaged in this work. And I think it's the most important work we're doing. And as a central office, obviously the really critical work's happening at the school and classroom level. But it does, as you say, Ms. Sharon, really get to the point of saying, are we supporting schools in the best possible way? And to your point, Ms. Silvestri, the best is relative, and it's based on how we're choosing to approach this work. And that's the part that has, in my view, has not been very clear in the system for several years. And when we get that to be really clear, and then can organize systems and structures around it, that's when we're going to start really seeing some progress. More progress, because there's a lot of great work going on.
And it might, just to add to Dr. Joftis, I think what might also be useful to bring to this group as well, maybe in one of our early meetings, and we can discuss this obviously further. What are some of those research practices that they say we should, to give everybody kind of a ground understanding of what is central office transformation? What does the research say? And then what are we trying to do to align our practices with that?
That's great. Thank you so much, Ms. Sharon. And thank you also for that description of Dr. Honig's work. I know it at a very high level, but it's helpful to hear more specifically what you all are doing with it. So that's great.
So as Ms. Sharon said, this is our last meeting of the school year. In our planning meetings for this committee, we decided to set academic achievement as our priority for these meetings this school year. And so we will regroup over the summer to kind of plan our priorities for strategic planning for the next school year. And so thank you, Dr. Joftis, for your feedback. And if my other colleagues have other things that they'd like to see prioritized in our next school year, again, Pillar 1 is super important, right? And so I'd like to kind of take it to the next level, and maybe the process improvements to get us to better outcomes is the place to go. So if there's no other comments or questions, thank you so much, everyone, for a wonderful discussion and presentation, and we are adjourned.